few weeks ago, I created a video on why the world is getting fat. And since then, I haven't been able to stop thinking about these two places. One of them has over 60% adult obesity, which is one of the highest rates on earth, and the other with only 4 to 5% obesity. Which is weird, right? Because today we live in a global world which has about similar food supply chain. You have similar supermarkets, similar types of advertisement, and similar types of big companies selling and targeting their food products to everyone. And that got me thinking, because if you give same input but receive different outcome, then perhaps food is not what decides who gets fat. It is something else. So I started with Nauru, tiny island in the Pacific Ocean, and most of you don't even know where it is. And what is interesting about Nauru is that this became one of the richest country in the world at some point of time, even beating US. How? Well, under the island was phosphate rock, a mineral used to make fertilizers. And fertilizer is what modern agriculture depends on. And this didn't come from any industry. It came naturally to Nauru. Over thousands of years, birds nested on the same island. They pooped basically, and this poop layer built up over time and slowly turned this into a phosphate-rich rock. And during the colonial rule, that phosphate was mined and exported. Nauru didn't control it, but after the independence, that changed. Suddenly, the country owned the resource, and because the population was tiny, the wealth per person exploded. For a very brief period of time, it ranked as one of the richest countries, even beating US. But something didn't add up, because they went on mining aggressively, so everything became difficult for them. The mining had taken away most of the island, and 80% was stripped down to just limestones. These are the rocks that you cannot use to support farming. So the food production disappeared, not slowly, but simply gone. And this raised an important question. If you can't grow your own food, what do you eat? The answer is imports. But when you start importing food into a country, the priority is never health. The priority is always the cost. And that's exactly where the pattern started to emerge. Cheap calories enter the system faster than anything else. Industrial meat cuts like turkey tails, high-fat, low-demand food from rich countries started coming. Countries like New Zealand started selling mutton flaps because their own people were not interested in eating them. So what did they do? They decided to export it. And over time at Nauru, that became the diet. Things that nobody in the world was interested in eating it became the baseline for Nauru. And this is the reason why this country is obese. Type 2 diabetes is among the highest in the world, and life expectancy is lower than most developed nations. But that didn't truly explain everything, because if export is all the answer, why did it not impact Japan, which is one of the healthiest countries in the world? So I started looking to Japan. Same supermarkets, same fast food chains, and same global imports. But the obesity rate is about 5%. So there is something else that is happening in Japan that is making sure people are fit. And that's when I stopped thinking about food for a moment and looked at something else. In Japan, the daily life is built around walking. Train systems, densities, short distances, and low car dependency in major urban areas. Basically, you don't get to choose. Your city infrastructure forces you to move. In Nauru, it is the opposite. Small geography, car dependency, and limited infrastructure. So now you have some part of the understanding. There is food to the equation, and then there is movement to the equation. But that is not enough, because what I found about Japan completely blew my mind. They have something called the Metabo law. Since 2008, people aged between 40 to 74 are measured for waist size every year. Companies and insurances are tied to the result. So if the numbers are going up, there are penalties. But that is one way to look into it. They forced people to make sure people are sticking to a certain waist size. But if you know anything about Japan, this seems quite opposite, because Japan is known for sumo wrestling. In fact, in one part of the society, extreme body size is honored, celebrated, and in the other part, low obesity is the norm. Same country, two completely different relationships with weight. Again, I came to the same conclusion that food alone wasn't an answer or even culture. It has to be something else, and I think the answer is structure. Nauru lost its own food system completely. No local production, only dependent on imports. There is limited movement and no strong feedback loops left to correct it. And Japan, well, they kept enforcing their own system. Walkable cities, structured food habits, school nutrition programs, and a health monitoring system at scale in every office. So, same global world, but different internal structure and different internal incentives. And this is what I call as the Nauru trap. Because when a system suddenly gains access to cheap abundance, but there are no guardrails to shape it, empty calories flood in and movement drops, and the outcome has an impact across generation. And that's the reason why Japan is the healthiest country in the world, and Nauru, an island nation that nobody has heard about, is one of the unhealthiest countries in the world.